I was not sure where I was going to get replays for this video from, and as I opened the Smogan forums, I saw that Zachary had posted 4 minutes ago, and Zachary was one of my favorite players from the Gen 7 era, and I was talking to someone about underrated players from a few years ago, just a couple of days, and I was wondering, hey, I wonder if Zachary's still around. It feels like I haven't seen him, but I really liked his playstyle. So, if the material and or tone of this video are not really your thing, you can still enjoy it on mute, maybe with some music over it. As a tribute to a player I would be willing to bet that most modern audiences, spectators, are not really familiar with. I think you will enjoy watching him play too. That is, if you can get over the fact that he's using Toxapex here, which I know is kind of a deal breaker for some people. Brings up traumatic memories of Finchinator. Anyway, yeah, as I was going through his posts to find some of his old replays that I enjoyed, I came across this one from the OLT finals where he said, I wish the community wasn't so willing to drop all its sportsmanship standards on the basis of the playing skills of the users involved. Which, I'm not getting into that specifically. I guess this is more of an overarching idea of the concept presented in the title. This video was originally going to be much more, openly angry in tone, just because I had a bad day and was looking to blow off some steam. But, then I got home and I was just tired. Now I'm feeling more akin to, if you have 2 minutes to spare, I recommend looking up a song by a band called The Dicks. It's called Hate the Police. It's fantastic. And one of the recurring lines is, I've had a bad day. And it's a very unique punk song. In that it is a lot more mournful without sacrificing any of the ferocity that punk is known for at its best. So, yeah, something like that. Obviously, the context of that line is very, very different in that song. But yeah, that's kind of where I am regarding this. Especially because in my last video, I made a passing comment about my contempt for, I don't even remember how I phrased it, just a lot of what I see in the average, maybe not competitive Pokemon player, but definitely the average tournament participant. I don't know, it's some sort of gray area in between. But yeah, there's a lot to dislike, and now I've had these arguments before, so I know a lot of the immediate responses. Number one, well, if you don't like it, why don't you just ignore it and not say these negative things? Well, because one thing I've really realized about adulthood is that a lot of it involves explaining things that children understand to adults who seem to have forgotten, often, willingly so, in their regression / arrested development, so they don't have to, deal with the world as it is. I don't know. I've got a lot of sociological theories working, but not original ones, but definitely ones that I'm observing in my day-to-day interactions. But yeah, if that is genuinely a question you have, why say something that's not nice? Well, because something that bothers you, it helps to express it. And it also reminds me of people who say, why would I want to watch a movie where, it's sad or where, it's scary or something? Well, there's this thing called catharsis, where if you experience something that maybe isn't so great, but you go through it, you process it, that can be a good thing. You can exercise it. Exercise as in EXORCISE, as in The Exorcist. So you get it out. It's a good thing, which seems to be a very foreign concept to people who you would think would know better. I don't know. I'm kind of hypocritical in this regard because sometimes I rip on my friends because I'm like, how are you not willing to believe that this person is being a piece of shit when they're behaving like a piece of shit? Like, how are you giving them this much benefit of the doubt? How are you not willing to accept that they are actually being horrible? And then sometimes I'm like, how do I have to explain this basic thing to someone who suddenly seems to have regressed into anyway, you get what I'm saying. Now, that's actually the second part, the hypocrisy factor. Of course, nobody who's going to make any sort of criticism is going to be perfect themselves, but that's also kind of a shutdown of discussion. It's like, well, you're not perfect, so why are you criticizing anyone else? By that metric, nothing can ever be criticized. And it's really just that kind of tone policing thing which shuts down discussion and the pointing out of genuine issues. And you might be thinking, wow, what does this have to do with Pokemon? It's like, and that's where I'm getting at. If you want to take a life lesson out of this, it's that a lot of the stuff you see in the competitive Pokemon world, you can apply to real life, which is a recurring thing I've mentioned in my videos. So I hope someone takes some sort of benefit out of them. Anyway, so I mentioned my contempt for let's say average Smog Tours participant, because even if someone doesn't directly participate in Spoken tournaments and just like hangs out like in Discords or whatever, the attitude is roughly the same because it all stems from that. And again, a lot of it is not specific to, or actually I would say none of it is specific to just, online competitive Pokemon. It's just kind of how people tend to be. But the biggest thing is, and I have to give credit to Austin Matitos for not just being the best advanced player, but also hammering into my head whenever I was flabbergasted. He was like, Dunning-Kruger, man, it never fails. I think I mentioned it in the last video, but I don't care. Where basically something very common is that the more someone doesn't know what they're talking about, strictly in competitive Pokemon, for this context, obviously it applies to real life, but, I'm talking strictly with my experiences in the competitive Pokemon world. The more someone has no clue what they're talking about, the more confident they will be in ripping you to shreds and telling you that you suck, even though a lot of what they say is demonstrably wrong and stupid. So that's something. We tend to be very results-based in a game like Pokemon, which is hilariously stupid. And a lot of people will say, oh, you can't be results-based in Pokemon, and then turn around and do that. You saw a lot of this during the Callus days. No disrespect to Callus, but he could be like that a lot. But he was pretty good about it, all things considered. But his viewers, the average Smog Tours participant, same difference. They would... it's the same thing. You've seen this if you've been around competitive Pokemon. Someone will crit you 3 times in 3 turns and T-Bolt pair full pair on the first try, and then the spectators will act like it was some sort of great display of skill. Now, why that is, because they identify with player 1, they want them to win, they don't care if it's accurate or not, they just want to feel good. And, once you realize that, oh wow, that applies to real life too, holy shit. So... yeah, but it doesn't make it any... just because that's the explanation for it doesn't make it okay. And whenever someone... I think we tend to excuse people's behavior just because we can explain where it comes from a lot. Another argument I got into in the advanced Discord once, because that's my favorite pastime whenever I'm on public transport, is just... you know what, let me see what I can get into a fight over. It is a good exercise for the brain, though. If it was just purely negative, I wouldn't do it. But, I like stretching my mental muscles and using logic, which is a very foreign concept to a lot of the Smog Tours crowd who enjoys just jeering and sort of tribalism almost, and just, well... I get that it's a fun thing and I shouldn't overthink it, and but at the same time, I like the intellectual part of competitive Pokemon, as hilarious as that sentence might sound to someone who says, bro, it's not that deep, which is also what stupid people say when they are made to feel stupid. Anyway, I was about to go off on a whole thing there, but I think that pretty much sums it up. So, where was I? Speaking of being stupid, am I right? Yeah. The results-based thing, that is one thing. And another thing I've noticed is the willingness to turn on, and I have a very concrete example for this, willingness to turn on great players as soon as, they have a bad game or a bad tournament or something. This happened a million times, but the most recent example was ABR had a bad World Cup. I don't think it was this year. It might have been last year. I don't fucking remember. Doesn't matter. I think he went 0-3 in World Cup for the first time ever. Now, ABR is pretty much, considered the best player ever, by most people. And there are a few people who could challenge him for it, but the point is, he's not going to be worse than top 2, 3 absolute I don't know what anyone would say 3. I take it back. Number 2, absolute worst, right? This has been a guy who's been dominant, utterly dominant, completely defining the game for close to a decade. He has one bad tournament, and immediately the players who could not beat him in a serious tournament to save their lives come out of the woodworks to say he's washed. Now, you might be wondering, BKC, why do you give a shit about those people? And don't worry, I hear you. We'll get there. But at the, yes, why give a shit? People are like this. People are shitty. Why are you surprised by this? Yes, but at the same time, what I hope this video does is, bring some sort of awareness to it. Because if you're just preaching to people who already agree, then it doesn't do anything. The hope I have is that this reaches someone who, I always used to refer to it, as people wanting the right to be an asshole. Because there would be, this was a very common genre, we can call it, of Smogtor's viewer, where they would just talk shit over and over and over and over and over and over again. And they would be insufferable and wrong a lot of the time too. But even if they were right, that, they would be just an asshole for fun. And then if they would get called on it, then suddenly they would play the victim card and say, why are you, taking it so seriously? Why can't you just let me be an asshole to people in peace? And then there were funny examples of people preaching, being nice for the sake of others' mental health, and then being a bully for fun, and then bragging about being a bully for fun. That happened a lot. Anyway, so to get back to the ABR thing, ABR wasn't the only player this happened to. I saw it happen to McMegan. I saw it happen to Ojama. I saw it happen to Earthworm. I saw it happen to every great player you can name. And yeah, I mean, people being opportunistic jackasses, they feel better about putting someone else down. Like, yeah, shocker. But at the same time, he's like, oh yeah, well, isn't that what bullies do when they're kids? It's like, yeah, and then you realize a lot of people never grow up. And you think, well, here's a guy who's ranting about it on the internet. Is that grown up? And it's like, well, it's gonna make me a couple bucks, so. In that sense, capitalism. Am I right? Yeah, I hope I'm presenting this in at least somewhat of a thought-provoking enough fashion to where it's not just blind anger. Because I do think about this a lot. And when you think about it a lot, then, and analyze it where it comes from, then it makes a lot more sense. But just because it makes sense doesn't mean it's okay. And that brings me to the idea where I touched on however many minutes ago, where it was like, well, why do you even care about these people? Well, part of playing... Look, if you want to play competitive Pokemon, almost completely isolated, you don't talk to anyone but your friends, and you just play the game, more power to you. But for a lot of people, a lot of the fun in competitive Pokemon is, the social factor. It's fun to talk about it. And the flip side to this is, of course, that there are some people who are only in it for the social factor and not the game, and that drives a lot of this behavior as well. You'll see people who just could not care less about the accuracy of what they're saying, but they just, like being part of the spectacle. And then that leads them to say, harsh things, because harsh things are accepted by the crowd. It's like, oh, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. He just called the guy who's playing the game shit. So he must be fucking smart. Let me praise him for it. LOL, so true. Yeah, so I think it's a shame when the social aspect is marred because a lot of players, or spectators, are so willing to just inaccurately talk their shit. And personally, my enjoyment of the game comes from, analyzing the game as it is and not just, screaming my head off. Holy shit, he fucking got up Stealth Rock with Heatran when his opponent had Ferrothorn out. Oh my fucking god. Yeah, nothing will make someone angrier than pointing out that they're wrong about something they said very aggressively. Yeah, competitive Pokemon as a sociological study is, truly fascinating stuff. And, God, I still got to make that video, why competitive Pokemon is good for you. And yeah, it does teach you about people in many ways. This behavior is not isolated to the competitive Pokemon realm. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of cognitive dissonance. And this is just about the behavior around the game itself. Let's not even get into the analysis of the game. Here's something I've observed across many. It's not a surprise that people hold safe opinions, but there have been entire metagames where the viability of a Pokemon is considered by many to be what one top player said. And I have a very concrete example of this, where the linear curve in Advance basically made the community consider Fortress to either be amazing or shit for like several years in a row. It changed every other year just based on what he was saying. And really, nothing in the metagame functionally changed. And I think Linear knew this. I think he knew that he enjoyed, he knew that people would listen to what he would say. So he enjoyed kind of tweaking it into what he could kind of do, because he had that kind of sway over people because they were so fucking stupid that he said Fortress is shit. Everyone goes, yeah, Fortress is a shitty Pokemon. It shouldn't be even, considered the team builder. That is like a real post in the viability rankings thread, by the way. I'm not making that up. And then, the year after, actually Fortress is good again. And suddenly everyone else has that opinion as well. Yeah. Similar things happen with ABR. ABR was not like a purposeful puppet master in the same way. I'm not saying that. But I have seen a lot of people, like, this is a common one. It also goes back to Advance. And I know people like being contrarians in general. But, we're sticking to the competitive Pokemon realm. And if you want to take that into the real world, then yeah, there's that as well. You see it a lot in the movie world, for instance. That can be fun. Anyway, where someone, I saw this, just recently, where someone is forever saying, oh, Skarbliss actually sucks because insert stupid fucking reason here. And then ABR steps in and says, no, actually, Skarbliss is good. And then it's just, oh, you know what? I didn't fucking consider that before. Thanks for pointing it out. It's not like he made some sort of substantial argument. Oh, actually, Skarbliss is good because XYZ. He just said, oh, actually, it's fucking shameful. So I personally enjoy when movies are a little confrontational with their audience, a little or a lot. You don't want to overdo it because then it just turns into an ineffectual edge fest. And not that kind of edging, haha. But more in the sense where, if you feel a little bit of shame while watching something, that kind of introspection can be good. And I think that we could do with a bit more shame in the competitive Pokemon world, because a lot of the behavior, which is, so fucking embarrassing, is particularly shameless. And I'm not talking about being, angry. I mean, obviously not. Because I think we are very quick to demonize anger. How many times have you seen this? Someone gets hacked, and then it's like, oh man, it sure sucked that I got T-Bolt crit, full parried 3 times in 3 turns. And then everyone goes, oh my god, this fucking whiner, he never shuts the fuck up. Take your loss. And then obviously those same people will then go and do the exact same thing. But, yeah, it's people can be very, very quick into jumping on a guy or a person, for not being happy with the game with the way that the game of Pokemon went. I'm not saying that people can't be completely unreasonable with it. Like you miss 1 out of 8 Focus Blasts, and suddenly Pokemon's so fucking bullshit. And you've been lucky for the rest of the game in other ways too. In that case, yeah, dude, take it easy. But yeah, and a lot of the time, whether someone gets demonized for complaining about hacks, or whether the Smog Tours lobby sympathizes with them, is also dependent on the maybe cult of personality isn't quite enough, or quite the right turn of phrase, but it popped into my head because I think, there are personas, I guess I should say, in the community that, are so magnetic that whatever they do is already considered good or bad depending on what you think of the person beforehand and not actually what the action is. Oh, what does that sound like? Does that sound like real life? Of course it does. So, again, the reason I keep stressing these whole life lessons, by the way, is because ever since I got into the competitive Pokemon world, there was like this sense of guilt among Pokemon players, right? It's like, oh man, I'm ashamed that I play Pokemon because, it's a video game, it's stupid, it's for kids, and all this other dumb shit. A lot of us grow out of it, some of us never do, which then gives us the right to be an asshole and then say, LMAO, it's just for kids, it's a game, why are you taking it so seriously, let me be a jackass in peace. Which, I don't know how you say that and don't think you're telling on yourself by saying, I need to be an asshole to enjoy myself. But yeah, that kind of sense of shame is, I think, a little misguided because, people play video games as adults all the time, and it's as valid a recreational outlet as any. Whether you play Pokemon or fucking, I don't know, Dark Souls, is functionally the same. But, yeah, I mean, you can overdo it, but you can overdo it with fucking anything. So the reason I stress that these life lessons of sorts is, people will often get the sense of, oh, I enjoy Pokemon, but I feel like I'm wasting my time with them. And it's like, actually, you learn a lot. So if there's anyone out there thinking, oh, man, I'm sure burning my time with nothing to show for it, it's like, no, you're learning. It's like it's kind of like you're reading about important things, but you're just getting to the information in a very roundabout way by listening to this guy who's venting over his frustrating day via this outlet, this very unique outlet that he has, because he's annoyed that he doesn't have basketball for a couple days and can't get it out that way. So, yeah, it's a combination of, again, catharsis. I said catharsis earlier, right? I'm sure I did. Whatever. And learning and understanding. And isn't that just wonderful? I feel better already. I hope you do as well. Or, at the very least, you've gotten something to think about regarding this. So, yeah, I think... excuse me. Let me gather my thoughts because I think that was most of what was on my mind, but I know I'm leaving something out, so I'm just going to take a second to think about it while I drink my tea. Yeah, I get that shit talk is fun for a lot of people, but I don't know, I don't understand that personally, or not that I don't understand it, rather, I don't connect with that at all, because to me, the enjoyment is, the game and winning the game, and I don't really feel better by making my opponent feel worse that they've lost. It's one thing if, they're a jackass and they've really been asking for it, like the famous example is in World Cup 2017 where Brofist, who was otherwise the nicest person on the planet and who would never say a word in the game, then he told Mazar to take a hike after he beat him because Mazar was a cheating jackass. So, in that case, I think it was very merited. But, if you're the kind of person who likes to shit talk others for fun, like winning the game isn't enough, then in that case, I would really, say, take a look at yourself. Why are you enjoying the other person, feeling worse? Even if it's quote unquote just for fun. It's like, why is that fun for you? Why do you enjoy, saying, man, that was fucking easy, you suck? Where are the kicks coming from, really? Yeah. It's one thing if, like, in the heat of the moment, you're just blowing off some steam because you're excited. But at the same time, you know, can't you just say, you know, let's fucking go, hell yeah, that feels good, you know, whatever. Something that doesn't involve, you know, bringing your opponent down is like the nicest. Yeah, it always killed me whenever I watched CL play, whenever someone would, you know, rip into him because they knew that CL would, like, never say anything back because CL was way too nice. CL was, like, the one, like, person who was genuine. If anyone was ever had the right to criticize others, it was CL. CL was a fucking saint. Yeah, and I always told CL, like, I gotta let him, you know, people are... Yeah, and obviously, you know, CL was, you know, better than the rest of us. He was always like, you know, anyone with eyes can see that this person's being a jackass. You know, I don't need to point that out. Which I can sympathize with, of course, but at the same time, I also think it's really shitty to just let someone take things, just let someone get away with it, you know, take things like that. Yeah, it is another fascinating phenomenon, one that forever captivates me, how, you know, someone will provoke, you know, a fight or an argument, whatever, and then the person who responds suddenly gets ripped into. It's like, whoa, bro, why are you so angry? Which, I mean, people provoke. That's how people who like to provoke, you know, operate in general. But it's still that just because it's behavior we know and understand doesn't mean that it should be okay. It shouldn't be interrogated. Shouldn't be, you know, challenged. You know, I used to have the bet. I mean, on the other hand, yeah, you also don't want to argue with people who are never going to change. You know, I had this problem in real life a lot. You know how many times I argued with someone who was just never going to listen to reason? You know, there's only so much venting your own frustrations that you can do. But I think that's humanity's great tragedy. You know, our capacity for reason and our unwillingness to use it. You know, because we allow ourselves in our weakness to be so ruled by our emotions. Yeah. But we don't have to be. That's what's so fucking frustrating about it. So yeah, I guess that's as good a note to leave on as any. You know, just because it's... I mean, I'm not like, there has to be a certain point. There's a balance, right? There always is. You know, if someone's being a jackass, then you can let them know they're being a jackass. And if they're going to double and triple and quadruple down on it and just stubbornly insist upon their right to be one, or you know, take the alternative route, you know, just spamming question marks like, wait, what? I wasn't doing anything. Wait, did that really, you know, hit a sensitive spot? I mean, I'm sorry, but that's not really my fault, you know? Shit like that. Then at a certain point, you just bow out and let, you know, anyone reasonable with eyes see, you know, that they're that kind of person. But at the same time, they shouldn't get away with it. Because there are also people who grow out of it, you know, if they're challenged for it. You know, I know I've had lots of interesting philosophical discussions on if people respond to shame or not. I personally think that works. You know, I mean, in the moment, they might, you know, double down because they want to save face, they don't want to look bad or weak. But, you know, it'll definitely stick with them. You know, it might take them a while to come around, but they will definitely, they'll think about it more, and, you know, it might be for the better. So... yeah, there's that. Actually, you know what? I'm going to finish on that note. I think, or besides that note, I've hammered this point home so many times, it's almost stupid. But I really, really don't like when someone has their team building done for them entirely by someone else. I mean, people say, oh, it's about, you know, the game, playing the game. You know, it's not about team building. It's like, well, I don't know. To that point, yes, I understand. But to anyone who would like to make that point, I would like you to explain to me how you reconcile that truth with while also saying prep and matchup are very important. You know, you can't go into a game without doing your prep And and you would never deny that matchup plays a significant factor. I'm not saying it's determining games, but it determines how you can play the game. So if someone builds you a great team and then you have a great matchup because of it, that is a huge advantage you have because of those tools you were given. So how you reconcile the game is about how you play it with the whole prep and matchup aspect being so important. Another thing I've noticed is this is a friend of mine, so I got so I was giving him a hard time for it, but there was this frustrating thing where I was like, wait, you believe these two completely opposite things, and then they were like, oh yeah, well I'm human, I'm contradictory, and that drove me fucking nuts. Humans having contradictions is not an excuse for hypocrisy. Because when you really investigate what that supposed contradiction is, you find an explanation for it that makes it not really a contradiction. It seems like a contradiction on the surface. It's a complexity for sure. It's not really a contradiction. Barring extreme cases of. Actually, no, even extreme cases of, dissonance, you might say, oh, well, let's take the classic competitive player example, right? It's like, oh, well, you tell other people to not complain about hacks, but then you get into a battle yourself, and then you yourself complain about hacks. What's that about? What's that contradiction? It's like, that's not really a contradiction. That's, on one hand, wanting everyone to know, I did not deserve to lose this game, I'm super skilled, and I should have won, and it was the game being unfair. And on the other, it's also you wanting to, sanctimoniously lecture other people, and also appear superior in your morals. The fact that those two behaviors don't really mesh, that is not a contradiction. And once you explore that kind of thing, then you get to what the the synthesis of it all. Anyway, I'm really digging these Zachary games in the background. He was a really great player. That's another thing I in my ongoing interest of appreciating good competitive Pokemon, I really enjoy the little details. That's what I knew I was leaving out. I really, really, really dislike the allergy a lot of people have to Nuance. It's very black and white. Not even the haha Gen 5 OU. No, it's either it's good or it's bad. It's actually, to more accurately use the parlance of the competitive Pokemon player, it's either dog shit or genius. That's another thing I've railed about in the past. It's like, why are people so quick to call something trash? Like, that is way too harsh. Also, a lot of people using it, have not earned the right to be that aggressive. I'm not saying that, you need to achieve a certain, you need to have a certain number of achievements to criticize someone, Like, let's take the example of ABR. Look, if ABR plays badly, ABR has played badly, and you don't have to be a 3-time Smokin' Tour winner to point that out. But at the same time, there's a difference between, man, ABR played badly in this, and going, LMAO, ABR fucking sucks, he's totally washed. Big difference. Because, well, I won't reiterate that point. Yeah. Yeah, Zachary was one of the best wielders of Tapu Lele. Yeah, the Nuance thing, the detail. Good lord, that Clefable dropped. Yeah, I don't know, and the detail, the emphasis on detail really means that you appreciate a lot more than just the flashy stuff. Because there's nothing wrong with the flashy stuff, but a lot of the time there'll be this tendency to just, go crazy over the big prediction or the, the big double switch or something. And I'm not saying that, average Smog Tour player doesn't have an appreciation for the smaller stuff. Because sometimes you'll say, oh my god, look at that mid-ground double switch. That was perfect. That covered all options. That was amazing. But I'm trying to articulate, it's not even about that. It's just like the little details, like in the team building or in the. I realize I'm advocating for appreciation and analysis of little details in what is functionally, a raucous cheering spectator sport. It's like a gladiator coliseum event or some shit. But I don't know. I like discourse. I like discussing these kinds of things. Am I in the wrong place for it? Absolutely, But there's just so much interest in the game of Pokemon that gets almost swallowed, devoured, subsumed by the emphasis on, the big stuff. I really like the little details in the moves that might not even seem to have done anything, but they, eventually add up to something greater, and then you realize, wow, that was really. And that's why, I really like Zachary as the sort of subject for this video, because Zachary was not a flashy player. He was not making, unbelievable triple switch reads, crazy predictions, staying in with Ferrothorn on Heatran 3 times in a row because he knew there was, going to be a prediction made, something like that. No, he was just very, very, very solid. This is not to say that he didn't make good predictions or anything like that, or that he wasn't creative, with his teams, but I really, his attention to detail, which I've noticed is kind of like something I've noticed in the French player base a lot. He was playing Siduma in the previous replay. Siduma was great at that kind of detail-oriented playing. Bihai, I still don't know how to say his name, but like every generation I watch him play, DPP in Advance especially, he is superb at that kind of long-term thinking, even in faster games, especially in faster games. That's when you need it the most sometimes. That kind of detail. Ojama, of course, was a master of that kind of thing. Yeah, obviously it's not just French players who do that sort of stuff, but you get where I'm going with this. Even if they're not French, then the appreciation of the accumulation of detail over the course of a longer game is, something I wish we would focus on, or even in a shorter game. I don't know. Again, to make good on what I mentioned earlier about not screaming into the void, with people who don't want to change or don't want to hear it or anything like that. Then sometimes I think the best way to look at it is say what you want to say for yourself. Get it out, and if people are not really on the wavelength, then maybe you're wrong. Maybe you got to interrogate why you believe what you believe and if you're actually right, which that's also fine. Great volt switch there by Zachary. But yeah, if people really insist on the Thunder Punch too, I take back what I said about those predictions. The Brick Break. Oh my goodness, what a player. Anyway, yeah, if people are gonna be willfully obtuse about this kind of thing because they, want to relish in the emotional charge they receive from behaving the way they do, then, there's only so much fighting the tide that anyone can or should do. So that's basically it. We're just going to ride out this replay. I think I've gotten everything I wanted to say out. And if not, that's what another video is for. So I hope this has been informative / useful / I don't know, cathartic, fun, something for you. Made you think. Made you feel something. Yeah. So we're just going to ride this one out as... Oh my goodness. Oh, well, actually, the Sky Strike was absorbed by Pex, but... Oh, wait, no, sorry, I skipped ahead. Yeah, there's the Sky Strike.